I was shocked when, after a clear mammogram just before I turned 40, 11 days later, I found a lump that I was told by 3 different doctors was nothing.
40 years old, which is young. I mean, that is young. And we're seeing so much more of that now, like these diagnoses of all these young women.
Control what you can control and worry when you have to worry. And those are 2 things that have gotten me through everything from my diagnosis to earthquakes in LA to the pandemic.
How do you talk about that with your children?
My goal is to be able to chase my grandchildren and be there and have life experiences for decades and decades to come.
Aging is a privilege.
Nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, joy. Because this is the really important PSA. We have to know our bodies well so that we can hopefully notice changes.
Samantha Harris has been in our living rooms for years, dancing with the stars, reporting breaking stories, and bringing an unmistakable glow to our red carpets and morning shows alike. But behind the Hollywood polish is a woman who's navigated life-changing curveballs with grace, grit, and unshakable optimism. In today's episode, she opens up about receiving a breast cancer diagnosis at the height of her career, the radical shift that followed, and how she redefined her sense of health, beauty, and purpose in midlife. We talk wellness, reinvention, and the real power of listening to your intuition, especially when the world tells you everything is fine. This conversation is honest, inspiring, and packed with insights you'll want to share with every woman in your life. Hi, Samantha. Welcome to the Iconic Midlife. How are you today?
I feel like I am in a midlife, and I like to think that it's also iconic. So I'm glad to be here.
I love that. I love that. I know it's so crazy. All of a sudden we find ourselves in this space in life, and it's a learning curve. Like, you get thrown into like perimenopause, menopause. Like, how has it been? I mean, for you, as you know, we're kind of hitting this time in life. Like, how has this whole midlife thing been for you? I know I've been watching all your social media, so I know you're very into health, and I'm getting some really great tips from you, actually. I'm like, I need to get a rebounder.
Oh my gosh, I love my rebounder. So first of all, I'm probably cart before horse, but I'm a 2-time breast cancer survivor. So I don't have any lymph nodes under my right armpit. And so lymphatic flow is extra important. But so that's what brought me to a rebounder, because it really helps with our lymphatic drainage. But I also love, and especially as we're getting into the midlife, I especially love getting cardio with less impact on our joints. And it's kind of an oxymoron, because I actually literally just posted a story about doing some impact jumping to help build our bone, because of the reverberation that happens when we have our sort of that hard jumping, not on a trampoline, but actually on the hard floor, whether it's box jumps or even just jump rope or I like to do shadow jump rope, where I have a pretend jump rope in my hand so I don't trip. But really, the jumping on the rebounder is so great, because we get the cardio, sweating, all of that goodness, but we don't have that impact on our joints. So it's all fabulous.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm like going to be hitting up Amazon soon for that. But I'm glad you brought up 2-time cancer survivor, because that is such an important part of your story. And I kind of want to take it back a little bit, because I was kind of, checking everything out. And, I remember you and I actually have kind of a similar background with like red carpet and entertainment hosting and all this good stuff. And I remember watching you on Dancing with the Stars. You were hosting the show, and you were doing like all these great, things on E and all the channels, doing all the award season red carpets and all the exciting things, and you were on this like really great trajectory. And then all of a sudden in 2014, you get this really devastating news. So can you kind of take me back to that day and just kind of what those first few days were like after that? Like, what was the aftermath of that, like right away?
Well, first of all, I was sort of always known as the healthy one among my friends and family, the one who was probably maybe doing 2-a-days at the gym, or during a satellite, while we were feeding up to the satellite at Entertainment Tonight, I'd be the one, they're like, where's Samantha? We need her for a voiceover. Oh, she's in the parking garage running the stairs. throughout my pregnancies and afterwards, always doing magazine covers or articles about how do you stay in shape so well and what do you do to get your muscle tone. So I was literally the picture of health. And so I, as much as to everyone else's amazement, was shocked when, after a clear mammogram just before I turned 40, 11 days later, I found a lump that I was told by three different doctors was nothing. Thankfully, the third doctor, I finally found my way to a breast oncologist, but she's like, you know what? You're not crazy. I see something. I see the lump. I see something on the ultrasound. It doesn't signify cancer. The MRI didn't say it was cancer. The needle biopsy actually even, she came in and said, good news, bad news. Good news is it's not cancer. Bad news is I don't know what it is. Why don't we just take it out? And thank goodness she did, because that's when I found out it was not just, and I don't say just lightly, because DCIS, which is known as stage 0 cancer, it affects way too many women and is a very scary diagnosis, but it is incredibly treatable with amazing survivorship statistics. But I was here with invasive breast cancer, as well as eventually we realized it did go to a lymph node, which is why I had 11 lymph nodes eventually taken out in that mastectomy that I had. And it was, I mean, those first couple of days, to answer your question, my head was spinning. My world was crumbling around me. My husband and I had daughters at home who were 3 and 6 at the time. And I lost my dad to colon cancer when he was 50. And here I was, 40 years old, 2 little ones at home, the height of my career, and the walls came crashing down.
Yeah, I mean, what a devastating diagnosis. You're also like a mom raising 2 kids, 40 years old, which is young. I mean, that is young, and we're seeing so much more of that now, like
Yeah.
these diagnoses of all these young women. And then to also have your doctor kind of, brush it off a little bit. I mean, it's like all those things happening at once, like you're saying, I'm sure made your head spin and you just kind of, you're in the thick of it. But how do you find the strength? Like, what do you do to kind of wage your way out of that?
It was a journey of self-discovery, of figuring out, first of all, what my resilience was really made of, not realizing I needed to tap into that, and also developing a skill set that I never had, a set of tools to deal with overwhelm, anxiety. I've always been a very happy-go-lucky, glass, half full type of personality. Sunshine and rainbows is everything. And not to say there weren't sad days, frustrating days, days I broke down in tears because I had to drive back to the station to do a voiceover after sitting in traffic for an hour. Before we got the technology of being able to do it, which, wow, that was a great, fantastic game changer. But, being able to discover that, first of all, I had an incredible team of supporters in my family around me that I knew were there, but I didn't realize how much they could rally. And of course, my husband and I, and our marriage, devastatingly, some marriages crumble in the face of a diagnosis. And I'm so unbelievably grateful to the fortitude that my relationship was able to have to get through not just my initial diagnosis, but I'm sure we'll be talking about what happened later, 10 years after the fact. And so being able to have that family and that realization, then tapping into these tools to deal with anxiety and overwhelm that I never really had to deal with before, learning the power of breath work, learning the power of the words control what you can control and worry when you have to worry. And those are 2 things that have gotten me through everything from my diagnosis to earthquakes in LA to the pandemic to all of these things where you go, oh my gosh, I am so overwhelmed. I'm crushed over the weight of this. This is the pink elephant, in the room, the weight of the world sort of sitting on my shoulders, and I can't breathe and I'm panicking. Learn to activate my parasympathetic nervous system by slowing down my breathing, controlling my breathing, and then remember, okay, we all have so many things that we worry about every single day. It might be what's for dinner, or it might be what didn't I get done today that I'm trying to get done. And then it could be all of the, oh my gosh, what if scenarios that pop into our head. Thankfully, I forget the scientific percentage, but let's say 90%, 95% of those things we worry about, thankfully never come to fruition. But we spend our time, our brain power, our energy, and our energy drain on those things. So when I started to, so for instance, flash forward from my diagnosis during the pandemic, we're already in this very high stress scenario. And I find these very large lymph nodes in my groin. And of course, as a breast cancer survivor, the first thing you think and you fear is the spread, the recurrence, the metastasis. So I started to have a momentary panic of, oh my gosh. And of course, it devolves. And then I paused. I remembered my tools and I said, okay, I'm going to worry when I have to worry. If this, God forbid, is cancer, again, either a different kind or, God forbid, a metastasize, then I will have plenty of time to worry and be consumed with it. But right now, what can I do? Well, I can control what I can control. That means I can take action by, first of all, taking some breaths, calming myself down. Then I can pick up the phone. I can call my oncologist, schedule those CT scans, get in so that I can take those steps to manage. So that has really been my approach since cancer to kind of everything I'm doing in my life, from my personal life, my health, my family, and my career.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a great way to kind of put it into perspective for yourself, you know? But what do you, especially with the second time that, this happens, your children were younger 11 years ago, right? So now fast forward 11 years. What are you telling them? How are you kind of, because there is that innate as us as moms, we want to protect our kids and kind of, shield them in a lot of ways. So how do you talk about that with your children?
Well, obviously, a lot easier to protect them from the information when they were 3 and 6. Flash forward, so 10 years later, I had a recurrence. It thankfully was a local regional recurrence, which basically means that a couple of cells, I had a mastectomy, but, and even though I had one of the top surgeons in the country here in Los Angeles, we know it's not 100% getting rid of every last possible cancer cell. And the location of my tumor was up against the skin, which meant that unless they also took all the skin around it, even though it looked like it had very clear margins, there is still that remote possibility. And literally, it's a less than 5% chance of recurrence in mastectomy. But there it was. So I had that recurrence. The biggest fear was that, God forbid, it had metastasized. Thank goodness it hadn't. It was a very tiny tumor. Both times, and this is sort of the PSA, if anyone's listening or you're kind of drifted off now, you're doing the dishes, you're driving the car, and your brain's going to the laundry list of what you have to do, I want you to come right back to this podcast episode at this very moment and listen to what I'm about to say, because this is the really important PSA. We have to know our own bodies. We have to take care of our health in the best possible way. That means through nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, joy. And we have to know our bodies well so that we can hopefully notice changes. I found my lump both times, in 2014 in my initial diagnosis and in 2024 my recurrence. And that recurrence lump was so freaking tiny, Roxy. It was smaller than a pebble. It was smaller than an eraser head. But I was always doing some what I call booby PT, where I have to do some basically quadrant stretching in different directions to keep the capsule that holds the implant malleable enough so we don't develop. So I don't develop something called capsular contracture, which is a hardening of the area around the implant. So I've been very diligent for 10 years. Actually, I think I just finally started to slow down doing that because I figured, okay, it's stretched out enough in that capsule. I'm good now. I'm 10 years out. But because I was so familiar with my chest wall, with my breasts, what was left of them and now, reconstructed, I noticed that this little lump hadn't been there. And so because of that, because I took notice, I then could control what I could control. I took action. And I saw a exactly the same scenario, just a different set of doctors. This time I was going to my specialist in oncology, all again, 3 of them who said, yeah, no, it's fine. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. And I kept pushing and I kept leaning on my mom and my stepdad, who's a retired surgeon, who kept saying, is it still there? Maybe you should have a surgeon's hands on it. Go look at it again. We were ultrasounding and following it. They said, we'll see you every 6 months. I said, how about every 3? Actually, I said, how about every month? They said, we won't see anything in a month.
You're like every day.
Yeah, I love you. Just come in every day. I'll just the ultrasound to my house. We'll just keep it over.
Right. Easy.
Just teach me how to do this. I got it. Honestly, I probably would have done that, but we went every 3 months, Roxy, and basically the fourth time. Now, granted, I guess that would have been almost a full year of following it. So maybe the 6 months would have been fine, but I felt more comfortable with seeing the ultrasound tech every 3 months. And it was, though, because of that we found it. And we found that it didn't change size, but it changed shape, which made them perplexed. We went in for the biopsy, boom, boom, boom. So here I am with a recurrence and another diagnosis. My kids are 13 and 16. And now the breast cancer survivor mom that they know went through this, but that was a long time ago. And they see me so strong and fit and in the gym and working out. And, I'm a certified health coach now. And I'm literally coaching thousands and thousands of women through my social media, through my online wellness, through my Your Healthiest Healthy podcast and book and all of that stuff. So they're like, Mom is a picture of health. They're not thinking anything is coming down the pipeline anytime soon, besides maybe old age, if I'm lucky enough. And now I have to tell them, sitting there with my husband, that Mom has breast cancer again. And that was the hardest part in round 2. To look them in the eyes as they began to immediately well up with tears. I could barely get the words out myself as I was crying through it. I know, for having lost my dad, and again, he was only 50. I'm now 50. I was 50 at my recurrence, almost 51. And I know what it's like to lose a parent who's only 50. I was lucky because my dad and mom had me younger. And so I had just graduated college. So I got to have my entire childhood, at least growing up with him. And I look at the good, I look at the positives. He developed really who I am. And my girls were still growing up, and no one ever wants to lose a parent. And my dad did not get to walk me down the aisle. And I will damn well sure be at my girls' weddings and holding my grandkids. And I'm doing all my physical workouts and all my things, my mobility and everything I'm doing. As I tell my kids day after day, when they're like, oh, Mom, you're going to have another salad with lots and lots of different color vegetables today. And are you going to take a quick deep breath and sigh when you sit down before you start to eat that? And they mock me. They'll be glad that I'm doing these things that they're mocking me for now, because my goal is to be able to chase my grandchildren and be there and have life experiences for decades and decades to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And aging is a privilege. Like we're saying here, it's like aging is a privilege. And whether you're going through midlife or you're a senior or you're, 20s and 30s, whatever it is, like, please know that aging is a privilege. It's not something to like be frowned upon, because a lot of people don't get that privilege. So we should cherish it like every freaking day. But I love what you're doing now, because I've been, again, watching you on social.
Thank you. I try to give a lot of information and insights and help and guidance and just in whatever I can do with my social media.
Well, it really is so positive too, because, as you say, living vibrantly, which is so important, and really taking what has happened and turning it into something positive, and you're able to affect and help so many other women. So what has been the best part about, going into this whole other sort of, it's like also a reinvention in a lot of ways. You're like a certified health coach now.
Yeah, I went back to school. Like, I'm all about education. Like, I went to the journals. Like, when I was in high school and I got involved with my high school TV station and I was looking at applying to colleges, education and the right education for what you want has always been, I don't know why from such a young age, but it was always something that I focused on. So when they're like, okay, what do you want to major in? I'm like, I'm going to major in journalism. Okay, so where do you want to go? Well, I want to go to the number one school. What is it? It's Northwestern University. Cool, that's where I'm going to go. It's really hard to get in there, right? I'm like, that's fine. I don't care if I don't want to go anywhere else. And in 8th grade, I found this paper because my daughter just finished 8th grade. She's now just started 9th. And I found a piece of paper, a letter that I had written to myself, that I was probably at some sort of youth group event where they're like, write a letter to your future self. And I was in 8th grade, and I said in 8th grade, I'm going to Northwestern University. And so at the Medill School, it's very intensive, and that was my focus. So now flash forward, when I was always, so I've been a certified trainer for a long, long time, since I was teaching group fitness in LA as part of my, just trying to make my rent. And I juggled probably 4 different jobs usually at a time. And that was just one of them, one of my part-time jobs. But so I've been a certified trainer for a very long time. And when I was on the cover of all these different fitness magazines, of the different articles about wellness and fitness and health, and then I had my diagnosis, and then I wrote my book, Your Healthiest Healthy, which, it came out as a #1 bestseller on Amazon across multiple categories. And I was really excited about it. And then in during the pandemic, as I was, just realizing that things were sort of shifting, my focus on social was a lot more towards wellness and, this philosophy of really understanding what my book was about, which is what's in, on, and around your body. Because as we mentioned at the beginning, so many women, 1 in 8 women will get invasive breast cancer over the course of her lifetime. And it's getting younger and younger and younger. We used to think it was, oh, you're someone who's, some old lady, which by the way, 60s and 70s isn't looking so old to me these days.
Right.
But when you're in your 20s, you're like, oh, that's so old. I'm just so far away from that. I'm so cool right now. I'm just gonna go binge and like eat in the morning with my friends and whatever. Yeah, no. So I realized, like, what can our bodies do for us? Well, what they can do for us to live optimally only can happen when we reduce our toxic burden. And so my book is about getting the toxins out of what's in, on, and around your body. So your skincare, your makeup, your hair products, your cleaning supplies, your food, and then even toxic relationships and all of that. So it's a really big holistic viewpoint. And I was starting to do all these interviews, and then I realized, wait a second, I need more street cred. And so in order to do that, I did it first with becoming a certified health coach, since I was always being asked about how I get my, trainer body. So now I'm like, I better go back to school. So I looked for the best health coaching program in the country. And I went there, and it was a year-long program. And, yes, I'd had this amazing television career and I still doing work in TV, but it was a pandemic. I'm like, perfect. And 2020, I was in my house, I was online, and I spent that year doing this course and becoming a certified health coach. And now, there's continuing education that's required. So I'm doing all of my continuing ed all the time as well in these years past. And that's where I've really put the bulk of my focus. I love television. And when there are opportunities that come up, great. I'm a national keynote speaker, so I get flown around the country to speak about various issues around health. But it's interesting, Roxy, that it was my recurrence that had me almost shift yet again.
Okay. So that was the thing. Like that was the very thing that made the change.
That made the change in a way that in the first decade after cancer, it was all about everything I could do to get the toxins out. I have to eat the right things. And I'm not exercising the right way. I better readjust how I'm doing that. Oh gosh, wait, I need more stress busting. I better, right? It was that constant feeling like the ground was slipping out from beneath me. And I was grasping at everything I can do, the pressure to get every single last toxin. Look, I live in Los Angeles. I'm not going to stop breathing. So, let's hope. So I breathe in the toxic air. Now, did it help that I finally leveled up yet again and I got air purifiers throughout my home? That took a while. Reverse osmosis under my sink a few years back, right? So it's an evolution, and we can't make all the changes in a 180, right? We can't turn it overnight and think that, okay, I'm dumping out all my makeup and skincare and all my cleaning supplies. I'm going to completely redo exactly how I eat every step of the way. It's a slow progression. So it took my recurrence though, because that overwhelm of trying to be toxin free 100% of the time, 100% fails. And I realized from taking a step back after my breast cancer recurrence that it is okay and we need to be 10% toxic. So that's when I developed the 10% toxic method, which is really what I live by. And it's kind of flipping the 90-10 rule on its head, right? I think we focus so hard on getting as close to 90% toxin free and perfect in all the health things as possible. But when we kind of look at it with a little bit more breath and a little bit more give and grace, and we go, okay, I'm going to do this 3-step program of, and it's not a program like, oh, come pay for my course. It's just your own 3-step program, but it's 3 steps to the 10% toxic method. It's assess, acknowledge, and activate. So sort of assess in your life, where, in what areas am I maybe toxic? And kind of look, okay, well, with my food, maybe I try to eat pretty healthily, but, I do go for this and that and this. Okay, I get, and I do my drinks and I get my alcohol on. Okay, so I guess I'm 60% toxic when it comes to food. For me, when it came to stress, pre-cancer, I was 100% toxic because I had 0 coping mechanisms. I had 0 tools in my arsenal to make sure that I could decompress that parasympathetic fight or flight and activate that sympathetic rest and digest. Now I'm still working. I'm still not only at 10%. I'm still probably still like about 35 or 40%, but I'm working on it. And that's the goal. So when we acknowledge, okay, here's where I'm at and here's where I need to go, and give yourself that grace to work through it. And then you activate. You go, okay, cool. What are some easy, low-hanging fruit, accessible steps to start that process? So for instance, when it comes to food, easy, low-hanging fruit, look through your pantry and your fridge and turn around those boxes or those packages and look at the ingredient list. Do you see high fructose corn syrup in anything? And by the way, it's hiding in so many things.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So we know that it is, I like to call it liquid death. High fructose corn syrup is incredibly harmful. And thankfully, there are so many great, easy swaps out there that you will not taste a difference. So just start there. I'm not saying you need to go, 90% plant-based overnight. I'm not saying you need to, make sure you're hitting that 30 to 40 grams of fiber per day overnight. Work up to those things. Okay, cool. I know I need more fiber. You know what? I have a yogurt parfait in the morning. I'm going to sprinkle some flaxseed and add some chia or basil seeds on it. Or I have a smoothie. Great. Instead of adding orange juice to the base, I'm going to have water or coconut water or unsweetened almond milk or something like that. And I'm going to start to build from there. And it is absolutely a work in progress. And so when we say, okay, I can take a breath, I can have, a drink when I go out with friends once a month, once a week. That's my 10% toxic. I love to color my hair, so I'm going to go to the beauty salon, but maybe instead of going every 6 weeks or 12 weeks or 3 weeks for some of us who are getting grayer and grayer, you can do what I do. I have some really, nothing's really clean, but much cleaner, no formaldehyde, no, really toxic chemicals that I do at home. And I do some touch-ups, and I also save a lot of money because I lengthen the time between the salon visits. So they're easy, manageable steps. And that's what the Your Healthiest Healthy book is about, and the podcast, and just, everybody who reaches out to me. It's a lot sometimes, right? But it can be done.
Absolutely. And I think, it's interesting, Samantha, because when I hear you talk and, we're going over these things, I think the running theme with you, or one of the biggest running themes, is that you're not afraid to change, which I think it's such a great quality to have, because a lot of people are afraid of change. And so what would you say to the women out there that are maybe listening that feel stuck or like lost or just scared to like make that change or do something different in their lives?
I was completely where you guys are. I mean,
Mhm.
I had to learn flexibility. There's still times where I'm like, for instance, this seems so silly, and this is obviously much further down the healthy eating road. You're like, really? That's your problem, Samantha? But for instance, so first of all, I used to never like nuts, seeds, avocados. I used to think that fat was the F word. It was the villain. So I eschewed all of these amazing healthy fats. I learned once I started to squeamishly add them into my life, all of a sudden, I wasn't looking to drop weight, but I tightened up in a way that I didn't realize because my body needed those healthy fats. So now I love healthy fats. I love the nuts and the seeds. And my favorite nut is a cashew.
The best nut.
They're so tasty. They're so tasty.
Mhm.
And it took me a while. And I even do it like the best of the best, like raw, organic, unsalted. Like I love me just a nice plain. I do like a roasted salted. I'm not kidding you, but I really do enjoy. And I was having handfuls of, and I still kind of am some days, handfuls of raw organic cashews. And then through my recurrence, I chose to, after doing surgery, ended up opting, and people can reach out to me and learn more and ask questions. But I chose a functional route instead of doing any more. Um, I was on a pharmaceutical for the first time around, and I decided no pharmaceuticals this time, no radiation. By the way, that is not an easy decision. And there was a lot of deep conversation with many experts beyond my own expert team, because I had this wealth of outreach now from having a lot of podcast guests who are in that space. And I weighed all the pros and the cons very, very many times. And there's still sometimes I slightly second guess myself, but overall, I'm very, very happy with that decision. But part of that is, okay, I know that for all of us, by the way, anyone that's fallen off the menopause cliff, we know that when our estrogen falls off the cliff, and I was on an estrogen blocker for 7.5 years, so I've already been very challenged with my own estrogen. And I didn't realize wearing a continuous glucose monitor just as a biohacking thing, I couldn't understand with all the healthy habits that I had that my glucose was borderline pre-diabetic. And it wasn't until my integrative doc, who's my primary care physician, said, well, you're blocking your estrogen. Estrogen and insulin. Estrogen is needed for insulin regulation. Well, no one had, and I'm a health coach. At this point, I'm deep into health coach wellness, and no one, not any research and no other experts, no one had told me this besides my doctor when I questioned him as to why my N of 1 study was so much higher than I thought. So for every woman who goes through menopause, you don't have to have had cancer and an estrogen block. Anyone going through menopause, as we lose our estrogen, every single woman in menopause, so alert, every woman listening and you all go through menopause if you are not now, every single woman going through menopause and after menopause, when that estrogen isn't there in the same levels, and especially if you're not able to do hormone replacement therapy, which I cannot because of my breast cancer. By the way, if you're listening, you're a survivor, vaginal estrogen is not systemic, so talk to your doctor about that one. But basically, we are all at a higher risk of diabetes.
Wow.
Because we don't have that same glucose regulation, that same insulin response from the estrogen helping it out. So back to the cashews, because why did you just go there from cashews? Cashews are higher in carbs. They're a higher sugary nut. So the advice that I was getting through the nutrition portion of my functional post-cancer treatment was, okay, you need to get rid of those cashews, back off. You can have a couple a day if you really want them, but you need to switch to, an almond, a walnut, some, so I switched to some pumpkin seeds, which I do lightly salted. And yet somehow I found myself right back into my handfuls of cashews because I really, really freaking love them. So
they make you happy.
Make me happy. So that's my struggle. So there's, no matter where you are, if you're at the very beginning and you're like, Samantha, first of all, when it comes to exercise, I haven't exercised since 5th grade PE class. Just start walking. Start a block. Just dedicate yourself to a block of walking a day. I don't care if it is at a slow crawl. Just start. The hardest part is starting. Or you are way at the other end and you've been far into this wellness journey. We all have our struggles. We all have places we can make improvement and level up. A nutrition example of that is if you are, trying to add more, more fiber and more polyphenols, which are great cancer killers and great for overall health. I want to recommend trying to have berries every day. Now, if you're able to have any berry will do, by the way. But let's say you're having blueberries. Blueberries are fantastic. They have these anthocyanins that are really helpful and great polyphenol. Level up. Go to organic. And then let's say I'm already doing the organic, Samantha. I'm killing it. Awesome. If you have an opportunity, and usually they're just available frozen. So this is where I love smoothies because they really can get a lot of things in we don't necessarily want to have or can have on a daily basis because of they're frozen versus not frozen. Leveling up to organic wild blueberries because they are even more potent. If you love broccoli, great. Not that broccoli sprouts taste anything like broccoli, but level up. Add some broccoli sprouts, which are, again, great cancer killers. into your diet. There's all these ways, no matter how far along or how early along you are, we all have ways that we can level up.
Oh, Samantha, it's been amazing. Before we leave, would you just let our listeners know how you are living iconically right now?
Mm, I'm embracing a side of me in my truth that I didn't know existed when I was in my 20s, 30s, and even in my 40s. And so, 50s are a whole new lease on life where I realize that I can embrace the me that I want for the next half of my life.
Yeah, it's exciting, right? There's so much more to come.
And that's why I do all the things I do in terms of my health and well-being so that I can be here and not just be here on the earth, but be physically able, sound of mind and body to be able to do those things and have those experiences for myself, with my family, with my friends. And I appreciate so much with you, Roxy, having me on, leading your iconic life. Oh, and I want to make sure too, anyone who's been okay, Samantha, you mentioned all that beauty stuff, and I don't even know where to start or how to. It's so overwhelming. How do I know what's not toxic? So when I last tidbit, and I know we have to jump. I did a show where we shot 65 episodes of a game show, 6 episodes a day, 12 hours, hot lights, and this is all after cancer. So I said to my team that I've been with forever, they're my really good friends. I said, look, hair, makeup, everything that comes through that glam door has to be my high level of toxin free. And thankfully, we were able to vet so many different products for what works, what lasts. And so what I did is and granted, what might work for me might not work as great for you. So I put together a list. So people that's fully vetted, highly third-party lab tested if it's protein or vitamins. And when it comes to skincare and makeup, super clean. And so if they just send me a DM, social media, Samantha Harris TV on Instagram or Facebook, Samantha Harris TV, but just send me the words clean beauty and then it'll quickly trigger that guide. It's a free vetted guide and it has links and it has names and anyway, it's super fun. And I love to share and I love giving free guides. So there you go.
That is such a good one too, because so many of us obviously want to still look good, but want to be healthy going about that, And what is the advice you would give your 25-year-old self?
Take a breath.
Good point. Good points. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Samantha. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. I'm so glad we got to do this.
Me too. Thank you so much, Roxy.
Thank you for everything. I appreciate it. And keep on keeping on, living vibrant, right?
Woo! You got it.
If you're walking away from this conversation feeling more in tune with your body, your purpose, or your power, Samantha's done her job. Her story is a reminder that even the brightest lights in the public eye are navigating deeply personal journeys, and that midlife doesn't have to dim your glow, it can amplify it. If this episode resonated with you, take one bold step. Send it to a friend who needs to hear it. And follow, rate, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen. And join us for more unfiltered, iconic conversations every Tuesday on the Iconic Midlife.